Hi, everyone. Every tour of the Oldenburg residence, I start just by walking around this beautiful building that immediately takes you to the, let's say, late 19th century eclectic Tbilisi. This is a very high-end, affluent neighborhood, so-called the German colony, the former German colony. And even though this palace was not a house was not originally built for their royal family or someone very closely related to the royal family, I mean the Romanov family, because we're talking about the 19th century when Georgia was part of the Russian Empire, and it was built originally for a European family, also a merchant family. There were a lot of international European businesses and enterprises in Tbilisi in the 19th century because of oil first and foremost, and Tbilisi just happened to be one of the financial capitals, well, the biggest financial capital in the Caucasus region. And Caucasus, it was also uh, intersection of multiple trade routes, plus the one of the transportation channels for oil. So that's why. But it was purchased later on for by the Oldenburg family, and already in the modern times, it became the Museum of Georgian Theatre, Music, Cinema, and Choreography. And right now, it's kind of a combination of two museums in one. Sharon, thank you so much for the coffees. It's both the museum of, well, it's just a nice example of architecture, eclectic 19th century architecture. This building is unique. I would say not just to the city, but to the country of Georgia. And it's also a museum of Georgian, I would say, heritage with regards to, well, cinema, theater, and everything. And also, it's the museum of Constantine of Oldenburg and his wife, Countess von Zarnikau, Agrippina Zarnikau. We spoke about them before, so I'm not going into much of the details. However, I will be reminded, we'll be getting back to some of those things. So once they got married, they purchased this house, and it was their, well, kind of a Tbilisi residence. They were not so frequent to Tbilisi. They were based in St. Petersburg. Whenever they were in the Caucasus, they would mainly remain in Kutaisi and in the family manor. Um, Zugdidi Palace of Dadiani family, because originally Agrippina was from the Dadiani family. That is one of the most aristocratic of the dynasties in Georgia. So that was, I would say, in the not very often visited palace. And after Constantine passed away in early 1900s, she eventually sold the house, and this is the photo of 1917, 1916. And this house was at least rented. I'm not sure if it was property of Vysotsky Tea Company. And I'm now actually having Vysotsky tea here. How interesting. And yes, you may have noticed the pink building attached to the main body of the edifice. That was an extension built in the 20th century. So it has nothing to do with Zarnikau and with originally with the architect Paul Stern, who designed the main construction, the main building. Also German architect, by the way. Now we are back to this amazing dining room with extremely ornate fireplaces. As I said, I have seen a lot of fireplaces in my life, but I don't think I've ever seen anything like this. And what especially matters that, as I mentioned on the previous tours, that it's a historic restoration, scientific restoration, and it's the first. This was sort of a like pioneer project of Georgian Heritage Fund and the Museum of Culture, well, Ministry of Culture, sorry, and it worked. That's the modern portrait of Agrippina Japaridze or Zarnikau or Dadiani. So Dadiani was her maiden name. Japaridze was her last name from the first marriage. but first marriage wasn't exactly the bed of flowers, and her husband passed away, and this portrait was it's a copy from a photograph, and in the photograph she's wearing total black, and many believe that that photo was taken while she was still mourning her first husband. But the same year her husband passed away, she got together with Count Constantine von Oldenburg. You see his portrait over there above Agripina. And I'm not going much into details, but that was love at first sight, and they first met when she was still married. Her marriage was awful. She endured a lot of verbal abuse, and her husband had drinking issues and was an avid gambler too. I mean, her first husband. So in a way, Constantine was somewhat of a savior. However, there were a lot of dirty rumors about their marriage, and we spoke about some of the silly theories, claiming that the house was built for them, for their nights, for the nights of love and passion, so nobody could see them. And I'm giving a little bit of a teaser. So, evil tongues. I'm not sure if there is a word, if there is an expression like that in English, but I think it is, right? So evil tongues, or like the jealous people in the court would claim that they had a secret bedroom where they met each other every night. And you know what? That room was found. There was no bed, but the secret room was found. But we will talk about it in the last episode. I am going to take it to that mysterious secret bedroom of Oldenburg and Agrippina. But I'm not going lay all cards on the table. But I'm just going to say that I don't mind having legends. I don't mind legends. I like sharing the legends, but as long as you remember those are just legends or rumors or gossip, well, that's okay. I'm okay with that. Now, well, in the previous episode, which is still available on my YouTube channel or through my website, I'm not sure. I sometimes do not share the recordings on YouTube because of the copyright issues. If I share some bits of videos or some films or whatsoever, music, I don't want to violate any copyright issues with YouTube, so that's why I share the recordings from my Google Drive. So it's always best to check my website for the two recordings. But I haven't been able to process any videos yet from yesterday, but I will. I promise at some point I will. So, welcome to another room. We do not have an idea what used to be in this room before. This is still some gala rooms. We know of some decorations that used to be on the ceiling, on a bit on the walls, but not, let's say, not so much. And since there is, because the house was sold in early 1900s, like 1907, there was not really much left of Dadiani and Oldenburg in this house. There is a big palace in the town of Zugdidi that's is a museum of Dadiani family, and there are a lot of well, furniture, memorial items. But with regards to this house, we don't really have a lot of memorial items, but we have some items from the Dadiani collection that was either purchased by the sponsors and Georgian merchants or businessmen in Europe, because a lot of these belongings eventually were put up for sale, and also they fled. They were kind of smuggled to Europe with immigrants. And there were other ways, obviously, too, how many of the items and jewelry and artworks made their way to Europe eventually after the Bolshevik invasion. But and also we have some items from the Zugdidi Museum collection too. But largely, this museum has a focus on Georgian cinema, art, and theater. So in this room, apart from just having this lovely stove, well, it's okay. It can't compare to the stove we have seen just now, to the fireplace. But this is a nice stove, and in a very good condition. But also in this room, we see a lot of photographs. And for example, over here we see a group photo and also profiles of a choir, by the way, the Georgian choir. And we spoke about the fact that in mid 19th century it was the period of revival of Georgian culture. There was kind of a golden age of Georgian culture that was during the reign of Queen Tamar. And well, that's, let's say, general 11th, 12th, and 13th century. So it's her son, well, and a little bit further on with David Agmashenibeli, and king who managed to unite a lot of smaller kingdoms and contributed greatly to the formation of the country Georgia as we know now. And after that, Georgia was multiple times invaded by Persians, by Ottomans, and it was just torn by multiple wars, invasions, and bloodshed. So eventually, only in mid 19th century, during the times of the Russian Empire, there was this revival of the Georgian culture. At least country was not military attacked, and there was place for contemplation, for revival of old traditions, and also the revival of Georgian singing, Georgian national songs. And Georgia, because, well, Tbilisi was developing at a breakneck speed thanks to all those investments, the oil money, the railroad money, and everything. Tbilisi became extremely a curious destination for Europeans and just for tourism and more than that. And we are looking at the portrait of Josef Ratli, who was a Czech singer, conductor, and bandmaster who first came to Georgia just as a tourist. And he liked it so much, and he made some friends, with local musicians, and he started performing. And they loved, well, Georgians loved Rati for his music, for his talent, for his singing, and he liked it in Georgia so much that eventually he came back and stayed here for the rest of his life. And he, at some point, he made up an orchestra. And the photo next to the fireplace is, well, there's a group photo, that's his choir. And also there were portraits. So those are what the singers from Ratil's choir. And in the free time, Ratil collected Georgian folk songs. He recorded them, he translated them, because this is folk singing. And, well, all these traditions and songs died with the people who sang them. And he contributed a lot to the preservation of the heritage. So there's just another photo that I have been able to find. Josef Ratil. I don't think that he is known this much. Well, he's known in the Czech Republic, but I don't think that's, I would say, in on a, let's say, European scale, his name is big. But he is remembered. He used to live, by the way, in the area that is also, well, that's the German colony that we know very well. He wasn't exactly the neighbor of the Oldenburgs. He lived in a different area from the palace, but he clearly was well, from the same German neighborhood. Yep, and that's his choir. I don't have a better photograph. So it was a Georgian singing. It wasn't a Czech singing. It was Georgian singing. This choir was extremely popular. It traveled across Georgia. It traveled to Russia. Proper. It traveled to Europe. That was a big deal. So, and Georgian singing, the polyphony, it's amazing. And a little teaser for the upcoming tour, we will be talking about Georgian polyphony, which I have already shared with you some of the music, some of the songs and movies. We'll be talking more about it in the final episode. Also, we'll be talking more about Georgian dancing as well, not the ballet, not that, but traditional dancing. That's going to be the next time, as well as the sacred background or bedchambers. This is probably a better word to use. Yeah. So that's the story of Ratil, and I think it's a remarkable story. It's just a random guy from the Czech Republic who came as a tourist, eventually became a big performer, a singer, and also contributed to the preservation of the Georgian heritage. It's amazing. I find it absolutely remarkable. And it only adds to the idea that Tbilisi was, in fact, international, big, hub, international hub. Um, and now let's talk about singing, but of a different kind, actually, Georgian opera. So, revival of Georgian culture and Georgian theater. We spoke about theater per se in the previous tour. So, Georgian opera. It is believed that Rivas Gomyashvili was the first who wrote, composed the first opera in the Georgian language. And his first opera was not, let's say, was not the biggest success, but thanks to his collaboration with Zakaria Paleashvili, who is a very big musician, and he is considered also one of the founding fathers of Georgian opera. And it's his statue we saw when I did a tour around the opera theater on the Rustaveli Avenue. So, but thanks to the collaboration with Zakaria Paleashvili, they managed to create a masterpiece. So that fully fledged opera with a good singing plot and beautiful costumes. It's like a full scale big opera. Actually, Zakaria Paleashvili, I think I should be doing a tour about him. There is a museum, by the way, in Tbilisi of Zakaria Paleashvili. He had two brothers. They were all very musical. Music was the most important thing in their life. And Zakaria Paleashvili, um, he was the author of a lot of music pieces, but first and foremost, so he is remembered as the author of Absalom or Absalom and Eteri opera that was premiered in the opera theater. Just a little bit of background for your information, just what this opera is about. And every day, every season, every theater season, every opera season begins with Absalom and Eteri performance. Like every big opera, like every big performance, it would be about love, tragic love this time, based on a folk legend. That was also important to turn already existing legacy and creating a new art form from it. So making it an opera. So there was a nobleman, Absalom, and a beautiful uh, girl from a I would say common background, a Terry, they fell in love. But their happiness was destroyed by Mormon, a powerful and jealous rival who uses deceit and abuse of power to separate them. Absalom is fatally wounded, and Terry, unable to live without him, dies of grief, making the opera a deeply emotional reflection on love versus jealousy, social inequality, and the tragic consequences of moral corruption. I like the way it's worded, and uh, it's not about how unique the plot is, but it's about I think it's just kind of eternal topics, right? That are always here for us. And I could not but share with you a short video that I found. So I found it on YouTube. It's not like I secretly filmed something from the stage, nothing. No, on YouTube you can find a full version of this opera. It's beautiful, beautiful costumes, beautiful interiors. And I'm just would like to include a little bit of it. And it's lovely to see traditional Georgian costumes. And it's amazing to see how the opera singing um, is combined with the Georgian folk singing as well. For me, well, I used to sing in the choir. I used to sing Russian folk songs. These type of things, yeah, well, you hear them. So this is different. So that's how Georgia stands out. Sorry, this must be a little bit too loud. Let me just readjust the volume a little bit. So let's enjoy just a little episode. Another interesting thing, you see that these people are well, the choir, they are also carrying this golden items. This is kind of an allusion to the gold of the Colchis or the Colchis kingdom that was known for the golden fleece, right? That's Argonaut um, story. It's all about the Colchis state, full of gold, and this Colchis is for sure it's recognized unanimously by the international historic community, well, historian community. That Colchis used to be located on the territory of Georgia, so that was Georgia. But we are talking like 2,000 years ago, 2,300 years ago, around that time. Yeah. So just kind of little comment here. Sorry. Let's get back to listening. Yeah. So it's just like it's more than 2 hours long, and if it's something that you're well interested in, I highly recommend to watch it. I'm sure Zoom kind of somehow reduces the sound, the volume, and definitely, it's definitely better to watch it on YouTube directly, preferably with a good sound speakers or something. Anyway, so here on this wall, it's all about the Georgian opera and revival of Georgian opera, also the designs of the decorations and stage decoration. Created in the 19th century for Absalom and the Terry. And also now we're going to see there's a little showcase. Well, there's a little kind of a small drawer with the different jubilee addresses that were given to famous Georgian actors. Many of them we have already spoken about on the previous tours, and so this jubilee address, it was kind of a um, let's say the whole theatre company would celebrate an important, well, anniversary or jubilee of an actor. It also could be not just birthday, but it could be a jubilee, the anniversary of the since the beginning of the acting career. So here we see different items. We're going to see them, and just to kind of a little refresher, we will see the item that belonged to Mako Safarova Bashidze, who was one of the uh, founding mothers of the Georgian theater, and she was also one of the first entrepreneurs. She also had her own private theater company, which was a big deal. Avasa Bashidze, who happened to be her husband for a short period of time, he was the one of the best comedian actors, also one of the founders of Georgian theater, one of the first actors, and especially the big um, uh, founding father of the comedian theater, so to speak. And it went naturally. So most of these actors, they did not really study anywhere because there was no theater school. There wasn't even theater for a long time because Georgia was totally into different things like survival, or was on a survival mode for many years. And that's why most of these actors would be originally amateurs, and then they would learn with time. They could go study further on, mainly St. Petersburg, Moscow, or Europe, and then they would come back home and work to make things even better with regards to Georgian theater. And also in these two big showcases, we see the dresses. We will see two women's dresses of late 19th century. One of them is in European style, and that's what you see. And also we'll see another one. That's the one you see here. It's clearly European style, and we'll see another one, and that's kind of an evening gown in the traditional style. And these are two kinds of outfits that women will be wearing to go to the theater. Obviously, theater was considered more of a European um, form of art. But since it was a Georgian theater, it was not an issue. So both types of dresses would totally match the dress code of the theater. And these are the restored. Well, this is the restored 19th century outfit. Let's have a look at it. Um, I just wonder why it was. I mean, it's so narrow. The waist is so narrow. I know it. There's always obviously a corset, but anyway, I I just don't get it how thin women, many women used to be back then. Obviously, it's generalization. This is an ad uh, in also 19th century. I think it was 1870s, but I might be a little bit wrong. Oh, mid 1860s. There was an Italian opera traveling across the Russian Empire and also across the Caucasus. And they came to Tbilisi and they stayed for several weeks. And every performance was a sold out and standing ovation. So Italian opera was uh, they loved it. So the Tbilisi society, Georgian society loved it absolutely. And this is the recreation of a traditional Georgian outfit for women, ladies' outfit, noble, and I like it. I like stripes, and I just like the dress. I wish it would, I could fit into this, and I would definitely have purchased it. That's an interesting thing. It has a belt. Belt was a significant item. Belt was one of the symbols of the social status in Georgian culture in general. And there were different kinds of belts that could be worn by different, kind of uh, aristocratic families, people of different status. So having such belt that also meant a certain status. That kind of a code language in a way. The dress, so it was definitely the dress code. Yeah, there's a lot that could be told just by looking at how people used to be dressed. That is for sure. So, but as I said, here we have, for example, the beautiful Chinese shirm. That's from the Zugdidi Palace, and also some bronze items, and also illustrations of different postcards and promotional material for different performances or theater. We're talking about theater and opera. This is the big dining room, and we have already been to this room, so I want to take you to this grotesque hall. Grotesque because of the decorations on the wall. Well, yeah, as I said, I acknowledge that they have done pretty good work restoring the palace, but these grotesque to me look too perfect, and the colors are so vibrant, so it doesn't feel like you are in the 19th century. It feels like it was just made yesterday. They are beautiful. You're going to see that. You're going to enjoy that, but you kind of, well, I'm sure you know what I mean. It's just that you don't have this feel of antiquities, right? Of like you are in a museum. But I love it. I love the colors. I like the designs, and I also like the beautiful painting. And well, not it's not even about the painting. It's mostly about the frame. So this is just the explication that I took in the museum. So it's the Argonauts leaf colches, right? So I specifically drew your attention to the golden items that the actors were demonstrating during the performance, right? In the Absalom and the Terry opera. Well, so Argonauts leaf colches. So that's that very episode when the Argonauts they stole the golden fleece and they are on their way back to Greece. Well, that's that moment, and the painting itself is a copy created by a modern Georgian artist, but originally that was the painting by Ercole de Robert. That's I guess 16th century or something like yeah, well, yeah, sorry, it's 15th century. Yes, end of the 15th century. But the frame is original. The frame of the 18th century, and it looks a Portuguese frame, gilded. I haven't been able to find out the provenance of the frame itself, but I believe that it looks absolutely perfect with this artwork. And even though it's a copy, it's a lovely copy, and it's here in its place. Like it definitely matches the entire room, with the color, well, colors wise, and in general the vibe. The I just pay attention to the details, all these faces, and it's wood. It's 18th century wood, and it's gilded. So it's the frame. When the frame itself is the work of art, sometimes it feels like the painting is even more ornate and artsy than a painting. I'm not sure if that's the case, but in the Hermitage there are paintings like that. For example, that's, well, the frame there looks bigger and more beautiful than the artworks. But it's just my subjective opinion. I don't mean to say that Hermitage has some bad items on display. That's not what was trying to say. Yeah, and well, it's just a kind of a corridor, a connecting room, but it has so much light because it has the windows overlooking a little courtyard. And well, I just also like the collection of the porcelain miniatures, Mason, Sevres, European porcelain, mainly 18th and 19th century. That was a big frenzy of all the old Russian and Georgian aristocrats to collect these absolutely useful porcelain items. And well, that's the Dadiani family porcelain. just a bit of the collection coming from the Zugdidi Palace, the one that I showed you on one of the tours, when even a door handle is a work of art. Like, please have a look. Incredible, absolutely incredible. And now we are here at this staircase. This staircase, um, well, from here, you can go downstairs and you will find yourself in that very courtyard that I was just mentioning. So the windows of the previous room of the core of this kind of a grotesque corridor. That's not the official name. I don't actually know what the room is called officially in the museum. Um, yeah, but what I was trying to say, yeah, and the windows are overlooking the courtyard. So in order to access the courtyard, you need to go down this spiral staircase. And here we have portraits of mostly 20th century Georgian actors, singers, dancers, and for example, these gentlemen over here in that portrait, the portrait was painted in the Soviet times. This is one of the sex symbols of Soviet period Georgian music scene. Not an opera, it's like pop music, and some of the Georgian evergreens were performed by this incredibly elegant man with a, I think everything about the way he looked, about the way he posed, right? It's so noble. So Vaso Godiashvili, it's well, he is. I don't know what to like who to compare him. Uh, Well, maybe in a way he was somewhat like Frank Sinatra. There were a couple of other musicians and singers. I think they were also very similar. They had a similar status of Frank Sinatra. So maybe in a way, Gadesh really was Georgian Frank Sinatra. Maybe like Frank Sinatra Jr., if it makes sense. So, but he was like really big, and he started his career very, very early, acting, singing, performing. Well, as we say it, for example, in the Russian language, we say that a talented person is talented in everything. That also raises a lot of questions, and people start having this inferiority complex. Like, but that's what the collective wisdom has. Nevertheless, so he was definitely the illustration of that saying, and just trying to not to get distracted too much by the news, but also keeping an eye on them, like something just a little bit like squinting. Sorry if I'm squinting, I'm just trying to see if there are any developments in the current situation. But well, there are some developments, but let's not talk about it. And so Vaso Gaziashvili was he performed in movies and in theaters. He had big sold out concerts. So he was always, so whenever there was something going on in the country, some important event, he was there performing. And he also had his own jazz orchestra. So that's why I think that he is very much like well, Georgian Frank Sinatra. He had a jazz concert. He could sing in different, well, he wasn't an opera singer, but he I would say his portfolio was really diverse, from jazz to really pop music, some Georgian singing as well, and I believe it's absolutely fantastic. And well, there are some big Georgian jazz musicians in general. Um, mm, there are there are jazz clubs, there are jazz concerts held regularly. Well, because Georgians are very musical in general. Mm, I I haven't met a single Georgian who doesn't sing. They may not sing like Vaso Godziashvili, but well, singing is a big part of Georgian culture in general, I would say. Look at this. Look at this bow tie. I guess it just speaks for itself. And I also thought to share with you as a little. video, a little episode from YouTube as well, of Bazo Godziashvili performing a well-known Georgian lyrical song. It's like one of the Georgian evergreens. It's not a jazz standard, it's more like a pop folk song. So it's in the Samreklo Holy Bell Tower. And the song itself, I'm not going into details about the lyrics of the song, but in general, it's um, it, um, some people compare it to a prayer, but it's just about, well, Georgians are very religious, so it's about the bell tower and its reflections, well, the distinguished reflections of love, loss, memory, spiritual longing, personal sorrow, and religious symbolism. So this is something that very typical for just lyrical singing in general. Well, but this is one of those big Georgian songs, and it still is. So it is an evergreen. Yes. And so in the next episode, we're going to be talking about some of other characters that you can see here. And we will be taking the steps downstairs, and hopefully I'll be able also to take it to the courtyard itself. So I have, I'm hoping to fit everything into the next episode. And this is the original item, right? So this is the window and the original of stained glass. It was one of the very few stained glass items with stained glass windows that survived. The thing is, when they got down to restoration, that was in the 2010s, the house was in a very rundown condition. I would say it was almost a condemned building. It was first just put under conservation, right? It was just basically sealed, and for a long time they could not decide really what to do with it. At some point, locals feared that the house would be just completely torn down because it's always cheaper to tear things down and build from scratch. And this is a very common policy, by the way, in Batumi, for example, because so what they can do, they sometimes preserve the facade, but the inners and the entire like skeleton of the building gets new. It become well, they totally build it from scratch, build it anew because it's cheaper and also well, Batumi is a bit different story because in Batumi the construction was going at a crazy pace because it was a port city and the population of city grew. Um, I would say with the speed of sound, maybe. And in many cases they would be using cheap materials and well, sand, some makeshift stuff, something from some secondary use bricks and wooden blocks and whatnot. So many buildings definitely cannot be restored, but that was not the case with this house built in the 19th century by a German architect, clearly for an well, it was definitely a high profile client that the house was built for. So it was a shame. It would have been such a shame if it had torn it down, but that didn't happen. And there were very few original items, original elements, and that window remained. So it survived this stained glass. It's tiny, it's just tiny window, right? But it's the original one, and um, it was absolutely essential to have it because in the corridors and the staircases you normally don't have windows, and well, but just a candlelight is not enough. So having some daylight was absolutely essential, and we have this window here. So, but we'll be talking more about other things happening here and other people we see in the portraits in the upcoming tour, which is going to be the last episode of the Oldenburg Palace, and it's going to be I believe, the eighth episode. I'll just have to say that. So you see that portrait to the right. To the right, I don't have the mouse, so we just have to look to our right. That's the portrait of Tchaikovsky, who, well, Pyotr Tchaikovsky, the Russian composer. Pyotr Tchaikovsky liked visiting Tbilisi. He was a very frequent visitor, and he was even considering moving to Tbilisi and purchasing a house in a neighborhood called Orchatala that used to have a lot of gardens. And he liked to hang out in Tbilisi, and it was actually thanks to Tchaikovsky that the Romanovs heard that plea of Georgian people to build a theater, like a big proper Georgian theater. So the opera theater in Georgia appeared thanks to Fyodor Tchaikovsky. It's not like it wasn't his idea. The idea was put forward many times before that, but for some reason there was no reaction, there was no response from the Romanovs. But thanks to Tchaikovsky, things well, he just helped speed things up a little bit, and it was just a matter of several years before the opera theater would be open in Tbilisi. And next time I'm going to be sharing also the photograph of the theater, just in case you forgot what that beautiful Moorish building of the 19th century looks like. And also, we'll be talking about the Soviet period theater and some of the absolutely essential, crucial characters for the survival of the Georgian art, of the Georgian movies, of Georgian theater. Um, yeah, so we'll be dealing with that next time. So let's have the Q&A. It's good to know that I'm not overrunning, and we have the solid 35-minute break before the next tour. Okay, let me know if you have any questions. And in the meantime, I'm going to share with you the links. So one more tour for tonight is the Temple Mount Muslim heritage site that we're going to explore this time. And this will be kind of the introduction to my short series. I don't think I'll be doing a lot of episodes on the Muslim Quarter. Well, but it's going to be kind of the beginning of the Muslim Quarter tours because we're going to be exiting the Temple Mount through the Muslim Quarter. We enter through the Jewish quarter, we're leaving through the Muslim quarter. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you so much. And the first episode of the Muslim quarter tour is already scheduled for the next weekend, and I'm likely to change the hours again because of the time zone difference, but I will keep you posted. Obviously, there will be a newsletter at some point. But as of now, I'm just go with the flow, I would say. Thank you for joining the tour. So the previous episodes from the previous weekend you can find either on my YouTube channel or on my website. And I haven't shared the recordings as of this weekend yet, but I'm hoping to catch up with this, to catch up on it this well in this couple of days in the evenings because mornings are going to be pretty loaded with the studying. Thank you. Thank you so much for your interest in the Georgian culture and well, just beautiful house, beautiful architecture, and the Oldenburg story a little bit. So I like it how this museum kind of combines so many things together, and it creates a beautiful combination of heritage and legacy, and just something that well, pleases the eye. Thank you, Dorley. I hope I will enjoy my stay in Israel, that's for sure. Thanks, dear. Thank you so much for your interest. Thank you for your support as well. And I will see you in 30 minutes from now in Jerusalem. Thank you, Margaret. Thanks, dear. Yeah, a lot of beautiful things. And um, well, so next time I will be talking about some more beautiful things. Yeah, for sure. I'm not going to lay all cards on the table. So the secret bedroom. So some mystery, even some possible ghost story, legends, but nevertheless, right? So we don't really want legends as long as we know they're legends. And then some important characters, some historic figures in the culture scene of Tbilisi. A little bit of 19th century, but mostly we're talking about the Soviet period. Thank you so much. Palashvili music is absolutely stunning, and the singers as well. One can clearly hear Caucasian intonations. Yes, absolutely. Well, I know Zoom definitely distorts the sound, and so the quality went down really. I could hear that, but again, it's just kind of to like for you to have an idea, and you can explore on your own in open access the entire opera. A lot of allusions, a lot of Georgian motifs, the costumes, the decoration, the Georgian singing itself. Yes, this is lovely. Reminds me of your childhood, Ellen. Yeah, this is it's a kind of a homeware. It's not a pajamas, but it's a homeware. But since it's quite chill in Israel now, that's what I'm going to be sleeping in. And I bought it in Amsterdam. I needed something uplifting, and Winnie the Pooh is one of my favorite cartoons from when I was a kid. And um, so when I bought it, I was going through a difficult patch, I would say. So yeah, for sure, many of us do love Winnie the Pooh. So I'm kind of, you see, I could have put something on, but I just decided to go with it. I'm sorry. I probably should consider to wear something different for the Temple Mount tour. Is there a piglet here? Oh yes, there is. So yeah, probably I should consider that. Yeah. You see? Freezing in Tennessee. Well, it's not like freezing, but it's more like we're flooded here a little bit. Heavy rains now. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining me. I will see you in 30 minutes from now. Bye bye.